Yeah, so I'm Andrew Hinton. I'm now with a group called the Understanding Group, or TUG, as we affectionately call ourselves. It's kind of a me thinking out loud in front of people about several big questions that have been rattling around in my mind for a while. Specifically, under the umbrella of basically, are we really framing all this right? All this work that we do, are we doing it the right way? Are we really understanding people as well as we think we understand them, and that kind of thing? Because really, we keep wanting to make all this stuff that is supposed to help us be happier, but lots of studies are showing that it's not necessarily making us that much happier. And so, my question is why? Like, is it because we're not working hard enough? Because, most of us are working pretty hard, and is it because the clients aren't good enough, or companies are bad? And I'm starting to think that can't be it, because companies are companies. They're going to be companies. They're going to be the way they are. Is there just some other way that we, rather than us yelling at the world and saying, hey, world, how come you're not letting us make better stuff? What is it that we should be doing to try to change the ground we're working on? There's actually a lot of interesting happiness science going on right now. It's kind of fascinating. There's actually a book by a guy named Jonathan Haidt, Haidt, I think is how you spell his name, called well, it has the word happiness in the title. I'm a little tired, I'm sorry. But The Happiness Hypothesis, that's the name of that book. It's a good one. There's some other ones out there. There are a lot of different theories on exactly what we mean by happiness. I actually am intrigued with the word, because it used to be that the word happy really meant lucky. When you see that in the Constitution and it says, I'm showing my ignorance, or is it the Declaration of Independence? I think it's Declaration of Independence. But pursuit of happiness really meant the pursuit of good fortune, because if you look at other words like mayhaps and hapless and things like that. Anyway, a little word geekery. But I think in general, the reason I bring that up is because in general, I think that happiness is this kind of illusion that we're all sort of grasping for. And it's really something that's just unsettled in ourselves. Because the world either serves up something of good fortune or it doesn't a lot of the time. But how happy we are is really kind of how we respond to that. But that's a little more philosophical. It's even more philosophical than my talk, which is pretty wiggy. But in general, like, I'm really just thinking that we're maybe looking to technology to do too many things for us that really it just isn't suited for. I'm actually writing a book right now for O'Reilly Media on designing context, and not designing for context, that too, but mainly like the fact that when we create information spaces, we're creating new contextual realities. Again, this sounds very crazy, but it's a real deal, and we're not very good yet at making soft machines, in the language of my talk, that explain themselves very well in terms of where you are and what your actions are going to cause to happen in the world. That's the biggest problem, is poor design in terms of really being aware of a holistic understanding of how your system's going to affect people. But that's always been the case. The first factories really weren't thinking very much about people's hands and arms and legs, right? They basically were like, let's crank stuff out, right? So every technology that involves people as a part of it I think has gone through similar phases, and then people start pulling back again and going, hey, maybe this isn't such a great idea. Like, are we really working with organizations or clients or employers or coworkers or whatever in the way that we really ought to be working with them? Are we really understanding the landscape we're working in the way that we should in that way? Another question is, we think we understand people really well, like as user experience design type people, like we tend to just sort of assume, well, I know all this stuff about how users are. And it turns out there's a lot of research that's been lying around for 20 years that I never hear talked about in these circles. So like, that actually completely flips the way that I now think about how people behave and what their cognition does and everything. So, that's the other question is, do we really understand people as well as we think? And then the last one is a little more, even more open-ended, and it's basically like, are we really framing the problem the way we should? And the question I end up asking there is, honestly, I think that we tend to create technology that we want it to be like us, like we want it to kind of love us back. And the truth is, it can't do that. We can only love each other. So maybe what we need is not technology that loves us, but technology that fits us, right? And I've got a kind of a visual example of that, but that sounds very, I don't know, numinous, but it's one of those things where it's kind of rolling around in my head, and it's a newer idea that I haven't really fleshed out yet.